Hey YouTube world, my name is Randy Rutledge, and today I want to go through the conversion of a double action only revolver to single action double action. This is a Ruger 357 Magnum Police Service 6, which is pretty much the same model as the Security 6 and the Speed 6. Let's do a safety check on this. All empty. Please make sure that you safety check your guns, make sure they're empty. Alright, so I got this pistol in a couple of weeks ago. It's double action only mode. The hammer will not stay back. And the strange thing about it is most double action only pistols do not have a hammer spur. So I'm thinking this hammer's probably been modified to make it double action only. I want to make this a single action double action revolver. I just like that better for target shooting and for having fun with it. So I could not find any information on YouTube or on the internet about converting from double action to single action. I saw a lot of inquiries out there for people wanting to convert from single action, double action to double action only. So this same process would apply. You can see what it's going to take to make a SADA into a DAO revolver. DAO meaning double action only. So we're going to go through that process here. I ended up getting enough information to guess that all it is going to take would be a new hammer for this pistol. So I went online to Numeric Gun Parts. Their website is gunpartscorp.com. They've got a great selection of parts for various makes and models. I ordered a new hammer for this Ruger Security 6. These pistols were made from the 70s through the 80s. They're pretty much the predecessor to the newer Ruger GP100s. I happen to like these better. These are very stout, bulletproof guns. Bulletproof. Yeah, you gotta like that. They just seem less bulky, a little easier to carry around to me than the GP100s do. I like the half lug under here. Other than that, these are very similar to the GP100s. If you happen to find one of these old Ruger Security 6s or Speed 6s or Police Service 6 and you're wondering if it's a decent gun and something to pick up, I would highly recommend it. So anyways, ordered a new hammer. This deal from gunpartscorp.com, $25 for this. So this is a very simple, inexpensive conversion. We're going to go through that right now, so let's just get started. Tools, screwdriver, some sort of a pin retainer. I'm using a small precision screwdriver for a spring retainer on the pin. A large flat whetstone and a small round ceramic sharpening stone, and that's it. So for starters, we're just going to pull the grip off. It's got one screw through the middle of the grip. Loosen that out, kind of push it out through the other side, and let's get these grips off. Now the grips don't just fall off. The frame of the gun has a couple of pins at the bottom that help retain the grip. Alright, so once the grips are off, what you're going to see is the hammer spring and the rod and retaining bar underneath it. So to get this out, if you pull back this hammer, And unfortunately, this one won't stay back, and it's hard to do this. Let's see. There we go. When you pull this hammer back, you'll see in that that rod has a small hole in the bottom, and that's where you need your little pin to stick through that hole. Then you just release the hammer. That takes the pressure off of the spring, and now this hammer, spring, and rod can just be lifted out like that. This is what you're looking at that you've just lifted out of there. Do not take this pin, your pin, out of your rod and your spring assembly while this is out of the gun. You would have a bear of a time putting this back together. Just set this aside. So now we have the hammer spring out. There's a hammer retaining pin. You can see the end of it in the frame right here. The end of the pin here. We're going to pull this pin out. It's very simple. We'll cock this hammer back part way and just push the pin out from the side. Oh boy. Okay. Pin is out, and now the hammer's loose. It's just going to lift out. I pull this trigger back part way, and that hammer just lifts out. There's nothing else holding it in there. Very simple. Set that aside. This is your hammer retaining pin that you just pulled out. Goes through the frame. Set that aside. All right. Now you've got the hammer out. Let's look at this double action only hammer. I've looked at these two hammers to find out what the difference was, because nobody could tell me what the difference was between a single action, double action hammer and a double action only hammer. And it turns out that they are identical except for this area right here, this little pad right here. Let's see if we can get a good look at that there. You can see how that pad is squared off and smooth looking. So I have a suspicion that somebody just filed that flat and smooth. And that's the only difference between these two hammers. This is, again, this is the double action only hammer. This little pad is squared off and smooth. The new hammer, single action, double action, I know these pictures aren't good enough to see well, but trust me on this, and you'll see the difference if you had them in hand. On that same area, there's a small ridge on this single action, double action hammer that sticks up about a 32nd of an inch. That's enough to capture the hammer rearward and allow it to be a single action function. So that's the only difference in these two hammers. You've got a little ridge on this pad area here that's going to capture the hammer rearward. So before I put this in the gun, I got it out of the mail, it kind of had sharp edges on it. They weren't completely smoothed off. So I spent about 15 minutes just smoothing the edges off of this hammer. You want to be very careful about that. You don't want to be removing any significant amount of metal. This is just a very light touch up on the edges to take the sharpness off the edges, and that's it. And do not touch this pad where your little 32nd of an inch ridge is. I'm sure it wouldn't take much to disable the single action function of that. So when I got this hammer in the mail, I just took a large whetstone, laid it flat on there, I'm not going to take the time to go through everything again, but just smooth that out on one side, then the other, just up and down on that whetstone. Make sure those sides are flat and smooth. Then took the little ceramic sharpening rod and just went over the very edges all around of this hammer. And again, I didn't take off any metal that you could even notice except for feel. So just smoothed up these edges so there are no sharp castings left on them. And that's it. This thing is ready to drop in. It's going to go back in, very simple. We're just going to reverse the steps of taking it out. I'll pull this trigger back part way. This hammer is just going to drop right in here. Once that's in place, you take your hammer retaining pin that goes through the frame, and you'll have to jiggle the hammer around a bit and get the holes lined up. And that just snaps right back in place. Easy breezy, simple deal. All right. Now that we're to that stage, this hammer, rod, and spring are going to go back in. Notice on this, when you took it off, that one end of this platform is longer than the other. Pay attention to that when you take this piece out. The long end of this retaining plate goes toward the front of the gun. And let me just show you on the old hammer how this fits in. This is the old double action hammer. On the bottom of it, you'll see a slot, a hole that the round end of this fits in the gun. Of course, you can't see that once the hammer's in place, but if you know where you're fitting this into, it'll make a little more sense to you and make this a little simpler. This fits in to that slot in the gun just like that. There's no pin holding it in, it's just going to set up in there. So as we go to put this back in to the gun, oh, look at that. Now the hammer will stay back for us. Now we have a single action motion on this. The hammer's going to have to be forward to initially put this back up in there. And you'll feel when you're in the right slot in that hammer, as you can see with the old one. Once that is up in there in the right area, now this is just loose. In order to put tension on this, you need to pull the hammer back. Once you pull the hammer back, you have set the retaining plate back into the frame, and your pin is now loose. You just slide that out. Ta-da! There's your hammer spring and assembly back in place. Just release that. And that's all there is to converting this from a double action only to a single action double action. And it's just odd how so little information there is about this, as simple as this is. Again, this is only going to apply to this Ruger Security 6. I don't even know what the GP100 looks like inside. But if a person was wanting to convert a single action to double action only, it seems to me it would be a simple process of filing that 30-second ridge off of this platform of the hammer so it's not going to catch. I know a lot of people ask questions online about converting from single action, double action to double action only. This is what I would do if I wanted to convert to double action only. I would just take the hammer out and file that ridge off, make this pad flat and smooth like this one is, and see what happens. So that's it. That's the conversion done. I was surprised how little information there was about doing this. Gun stores couldn't even tell me if this conversion was possible or how to do it, what parts were needed. Turns out to be a $25 new hammer and about a half an hour of your time, a screwdriver, and a little pin retainer deal, and you're set. So hope this is helpful to you. That's it. God bless. Adios.